Everyone, and welcome to our new video. And in this video we are going to discuss about the Docker rootless. So this video is basically a continuation of the first part of our Docker rootless lab that we started from the scratch, and in this we are going to continue on the same. If you have not subscribed to our channel yet, I will suggest you to subscribe to our channel. That way you will not miss any of our videos that we release, and as soon as we do, it will be available for you. Alright, so that being said, uh, so in our last video we have basically saw how to install the Docker rootless on the Centos8 from scratch. We started doing it from scratch, and we also saw how to create the container. So we basically created an Ubuntu container in the interactive mode, and then we run some commands on it, and then we also saw how to create the Nginx container, and we also saw that the container was running fine. Now in this video we are basically going to focus on the limitation of the Docker rootless. So even though on the first count it appears that Docker rootless is working exactly the same way how Docker daemon works when installed by the root user, but there are still some limitations of the Docker rootless and the other workarounds which you might have to follow if you want to use the Docker rootless for running your in your production environments. So you must be aware about those limitations. Alright, so I'm going to stop this container now, and then we are going to discuss about the root limitation from a practical example. Alright, now if you look, I'm not having any container running. Alright, so if we look at the Docker rootless, the very first limitation comes from the fact that since you are not using the root user for running the Docker, that means the underlying limitations of the operating system will be applicable to you because you are now running as a normal user, that is vagrant. So you cannot have access to the privilege port. Now what is privilege port? So in Linux there is a concept of privilege port in which the ports from 0 to 1024 are basically registered for the root user. Okay, so only the root user can have access to those ports, and now because you are running as a non-root user, in that case you will not have access to those ports. So from the practical perspective, it will affect you in the sense that if you try to run a web server like Nginx on which runs on port number 80, so if you try to create a container on port number 80, then it won't allow you. It will be giving you a permission denied error. That error is basically coming from the operating system level because it limits down those ports for the root user only. So let's look at this practically. So we were already creating the Nginx container. Let's see. So if I specify the port number this time and I say 80:80, okay, I try to create the port because this is the port on which by default the Nginx run. So if I say name equal to web server and image I'm using basically of the Nginx, so if I run this command, it should give me a permission denied error. Let's try this out. So it shows that the container is created, but if you look here, it basically says, it clearly shows you that there is an error and you cannot expose on the privileged port. Okay, and it basically gives you a way through which you can overcome this. So there are basically the workarounds which are available to you. Now very first workaround is like it's a very simple workaround. You can simply say docker run -d and you can change the privileged port to some unprivileged port and then try creating the container. If I try to do like this, it will allow me to create the container. So if I just create the container like this, this will allow me to create the container. Now this is the very first workaround. If I do docker ps now, you will see that the container is running, okay, on the port number 8080. So this is like one of the way through which you can overcome the limitation. Now another thing is, another way of doing this is by changing your unprivileged port. So it clearly mentions here, it says that you can add your net IPv4 IP port start equal to 80 inside the etc sysctl.conf file. If you look at the sysctl.conf file, okay, it's like this. So what you can do is you can probably open it and just mention this configuration inside it. Okay, and save this. Okay, all right, you cannot open the file for writing, obviously, because this is something which is required by the root user. Then there is so either you do it from the root user, add that, so again that is kind of a limitation, but you can actually pre-configure this when you are creating the system, and you can define the ports which can be used. This is like one of the way. The second way is like you can set the capnet bind service to the rootless binary, and you can choose a port number more than 1024. So we have chosen the port number more than 1024. In our case, you could have done from the sysctl as well. In that case, you should create a policy for the ports that you want to explore. This is the first limitation when you are running as a rootless. Then the second limitation that you will be facing is that that you will not be getting a direct access to the C group. Now when you by default install it, okay, and you verify the C groups using the docker info command. If I do docker info pipe grab C group, okay, so it comes to C group driver as equal to none. Now if this is the case, then if I try to impose a limitation on the docker to run, okay, that then the C group won't be processing it. So basically I will not be able to do it. Let me show you that on the port 8080 that it will run fine. So this is the one, I think it's already running. Let's just verify if the container is running. So yes, the container is running. So if I do curl localhost colon 8080, so you will see the it is getting the output. So you can do it, you can run on the non-privileged port, it will work fine. Another thing is, like if I just run it with hyphen CPUs, that will not be working. Okay, again the reason is that the C group does not work inside the rootless C groups. For that you will require the root permission. So I cannot do it like this. Suppose if I want to create let's say I cannot do like this, and if I say hyphen CPUs, okay, and if I basically try to put a limit, let's say hyphen I want to put a limit on hyphen CPU hyphen period to, let's say 100,000. Okay, so even though it will this command will work, okay, and even though it will show you the container will be created, but the actual limit that you are putting, this will not be imposed by the C groups. The reason is that you are not doing it from the root user. So if you want to apply the limits to the CPU, memory and those kind of things, then you need to make sure that basically you are doing it via the root user, if that's your use case. Okay, this is the another limitation of the rootless. Okay, now if you want to overcome this, there is a way for it. What you can do is like the C group that I showed you over here, which comes with a C group driver as none, then if you want to make it work with the C groups, then you have to make sure that it upgrades to version 2, or you can change it to system D as well. Okay, now that is something I will show you in a separate video. Okay, on how you can change it, the C groups to version 2 or system D. Okay, you will have to do some additional configurations for that, but if you change it, then you can make the C group work with the Docker rootless. Okay, and then another thing is that you will not be able to make it work with the app armor or checkpoint overlay network and exposing SCTP port. So these are some of the limitations with the Docker rootless. But if you are not going to use this limitations, like you have an other you are not concerned about these things, might be your environment is not using it, then I believe that it's good if you run your Docker in the rootless mode. That will increase the security, and then there are other ways of limiting the CPU and memory if you are using the orchestration tool with the help of Kubernetes. So that is like the other way you can implement the limitations there as well. So that's all for this video. I hope you liked it. If you have some doubt, guys, feel free to put them in comment. I will be replying to all the comments if you have, and you can also reach out to me directly as well. Okay, all right, so that's all for this video. Please subscribe to our channel. Thank you.